Hello? Okay. All right, everybody. Today is a really important day that we are going to congratulate Keleigh, Pedro, Katherine, and Tony. Today you complete your MFA program. This is the final to do. You've done everything else, all right? And you're beginning your journey as a professional artist. This is a true rite of passage that deserves celebration. The path you've chosen takes real courage. Being an artist means putting your ideas and your heart out into the world. It means taking risks while others play it safe. Your MFA has given you the skills and the confidence to to face these challenges. When doubt creeps in, and it will, remember what you've accomplished here, okay? Remember all those late nights in the studios or the tough critiques or the breakthroughs that followed after those tough critiques. And your degree is not just a piece of paper, it's a proof of your determination and creativity. Your creative thinking can help solve problems in the community and beyond. So take your MFA and use it both as a shield and a compass, protecting you from self-doubt while guiding you toward your unique vision and pathway forward. So the world needs your brave voices now more than ever. Go forward with confidence, take bold creative risks, and transform how we see and understand the world. Congratulations to Tony, Katherine, Keleigh, and Pedro. So we're going to start with Keleigh McMullen's talk.
Do I hold the mic?
I guess so.
Oh, wow. Do I hold the mic?
Let me find out. Let me ask.
I've never held a microphone before. This is pretty cool. All right. I've also never held one of these before. Ooh, okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Keleigh McMullen. If you didn't already know, I'm a ceramic artist, so good to see you all here. Some of you I know, some of you I don't, so thank you all for being here. We're going to talk about my 3 years in this grad program. First year, not going to talk about it much. It doesn't hold the same place in my heart as the more recent years. So when I came into this program and then my first semester in the program, I was talking a lot about the human form. Content-wise, I'm still talking about the same thing, but visually it's quite a bit different. So a lot of my artwork is about violence, and as you can see, still quite similar, but I'm going to move on pretty quickly from this because it's just not what calls to my heart anymore. So my second semester in the program, this is kind of what fueled my artwork going forward until where I am right now. So this was called Girls Just Want to Have Fun. So it's an ode to Cyndi Lauper's song. And essentially it is a room setting with a focus on a nightstand of little porcelain sculptures of all of these little vices. And it is about the vices that one may turn to, a young woman such as myself or some of you may turn to in a way to maybe cope with the current state of your life, of how you're feeling in life, anything of the sort. So this specifically is where I sort of started shifting my dynamic in my artwork. So previously, I had kind of had you look at the body as the subject, where in artworks like this, I had you be the subject. So you are now entering the submersive piece, and now you were the subject, and you had to kind of decide where you were going to place yourself within the work. Did you find yourself as a victim in the work? Were you a perpetrator? Anything in between? And so you were now the subject. So thus was true for the rest of my 1-to-1 ratio things. I call them my life-size artworks. There's quite a few of them. I also think that they're my favorite pieces. So here's another one. This is called I Will Remove My Teeth, for I Wish to Remain Kind Despite My Anger. So this piece is a lot about internal rage and violence against yourself. So anybody who does ceramics knows that the creation of this was an interesting experience, but I'm ambitious if nothing else, and it is still one of my favorite pieces today. And the creation of it was inspired by the solitude of a bathroom. And when you're in a bathroom, it's just you, yourself, and the mirror in front of you. And so having to step away from a moment of sheer rage and be with yourself and your emotions and have this exaggerated feeling that you can't escape, and this rage that leads you to the point of extracting your own teeth. So within the sink is a full set of fake human teeth. People ask me where I get my human teeth. Ethically sourced. They're ethically sourced. But there is a rusty pair of clay pliers next to him. So the thought process behind it is that you have this moment where it's either, bite your tongue or rip out your teeth. So all of my life-size pieces, I consider them like the ultimate visual truth. I always talk about my artworks of being on this spectrum of truth. So my life-size pieces have the ultimate visual truth, and it allows me to have the metaphorical truth kind of be exaggerated behind them. So that's why the teeth themselves are so graphic, so out in your face, whereas in this piece, there's so many different vices on it, and you have like financial vices, sexual vices, religious, familial, gluttonous vices, herbal vices. You got all of these different vices. And then my last of the life-size pieces is my most recent creation, which is called The Roach Won't Die. And it's once again an exaggeration of metaphorical truth. It's about, everybody has a roach in their life that won't die, thus as much roaches are. And it's just it's a nice stomped step, but this roach has a nice little personified reach out that's trying to stay alive, as roaches always do. This next series is where I played with scale. So I ended up within the same vein of realism. All of my work is very realistic. I've always loved realism. I never want to fool what you're looking at. You know exactly what you're looking at. These are just small. So they're life-size outdoor ashtrays, the kind that you would see when you're a kid, the concrete ones. But inside them is these tiny little worlds. So this was my first one that started the entire series. There's 4 in general, and they are incidents and conversations surrounding incidents. This one's up in Salt Lake City right now. It just got first place in an international ceramic competition. So fun. Really exciting. Highlight of grad school. Really cool. And these ashtrays hold a really special place in my heart. They're a very interesting dynamic. You kind of become this voyeur and also participant, but in a strange way. They're all about sexual violence. And so for survivors of sexual violence, it's kind of hard to step away from this scene that's like huge and like all consuming. And so to take something so big and shrink it down to this more digestible size, it's like you can finally have a conversation about it. And by adding in this smoking element, I mean, for people that are in my generation, smoking is much more of a social thing than it is a habitual thing. And so it kind of adds in that element of conversation, that we can kind of come together and talk about something that is really hard, but it becomes a little bit easier when it's shrunken down to this digestible size. And you now have that power back in your hands because you are now the only thing that is able to move in this scene that is quite literally set in stone. That's like the famous ceramic term that I love to use. It's set in stone. You become the only thing that can move. You get to place your cigarette, your joint, whatever it is you're smoking, wherever you'd like. So you now have the power in the scene. So there is 4 of them, and each of them have a fun little light element. So whimsy is a huge part of my work. I love being able to draw a viewer in and keep them there with that factor of like, wow, is this clay? Oh my gosh, this is like a little dollhouse. And then you go to figure out what a piece is actually about, and it kind of makes you think a little bit deeper and a little bit more horrifying. And so each of them have this light that kind of draws you in from far away, and then the little sculptures keep you in. And then here is the last of the 4. So each of these pieces has really long, drawn out titles that give you all of the information that you would need to know about the scene. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about them right now. And then a more new body of work that I've kind of delved into is humongous things. So opposite of tiny things, still true to realism though, I've done gigantic things. So these are 2 huge pills that I was able to show here in RAFMA, just on the other side of this wall. And my thought process on my big things is, if you were to take something that you wouldn't really think twice about, but it has such a potential for violence, and you amplified it, now you can't pass that violence. Now that violence is in your face, and it's no longer something that's small and digestible. Now you are small and you are digestible. So we've got, here's the one on the left. And here's the one on the right. And then me for size reference, if you want to know how big they were. Very big, gigantic, bigger than a pizza. And then my other large piece, I've made 2 of them so far. This piece accompanies that previous sink piece that I had made. And this is a pair of channel lock pliers. It is modeled after the same pair that the sinks pliers were. And they were placed in the gallery in a way that they kind of went together, and they both intensified the feelings of each other depending on where you were between the 2 pieces. So the reflection was mirrored between the pliers. If you were close to the sink, you could look up and see them behind you, so it intensified some anxiety. Whereas if you were closer to the giant pliers, you kind of knew that the little ones were lingering behind you, and you knew what they had done. And their size reference, they're very big. They're about 3 feet long. And I haven't created any other big things yet. It's a new thing for me. It's something I'd like to delve into a little bit more, but I haven't quite figured out what else I'd like to do yet. It's a bit of a new thing for me. But that's where I'm at. That's where I've concluded my grad program. And that's all. Thank you all so much for being here.
Renee, if anybody has any questions, but congratulations. It's really exciting to see how far you've come with all of this work, and going from these miniatures to these, larger than life objects is really exciting and so empowering for your next steps. I'm really excited to see that.
Thanks.
Questions? Hold on, I think I have to bring this around. So yeah. I feel like Donahue.
Hi, Kelly. I was wondering if you plan on continuing your ashtray series.
Thank you, Matthew. That's interesting. The ashtrays that I've done are 1-to-1 replicas of specific memories of mine, but that's not to say that those are my experiences alone. Sexual violence, every single person in this room knows somebody who has suffered from an experience that relates to that, whether it's firsthand or a loved one. So even though those are from my experiences, I have debated extending it to others, but I don't quite know how that would work for me. I'm not sure. I hope I hope I personally don't make any more for interesting reasons, but that's where I'm at right now. They have a special place in my heart for many reasons. I do love them. Just the creation of them is fun and exciting. I love the use of them, but the content is a little heavy.
Yeah. I mean, what is the relationship? Obviously, the scale, you talked about the scale of these smaller pieces, like you being more in control of them or having a different power over these places by recreating them. But then these larger objects, they're more powerful tools. Do you have a sense of maybe where that might be going?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you're going from tiny scenarios that happen to you deciding to make huge, big things, like a big wrench, right? Like that's a big, bold move. Does that have any symbolism for you? I mean, obviously.
Yeah, it's more of a like a method that I apply to them.
Right.
It's a scale of scale.
Yeah.
So when I shrink something down, it's because it's something that is a little bit too overwhelming to take in.
Yeah.
So I have to make it bite-sized essentially.
Yeah.
But things that are already naturally bite-sized, like a pill or something that's a small tool that could be used for everyday things, but have such a potential for violence, such as ripping out a whole set of human teeth, that is when I take them and I kind of put them in your face and I make sure that you can't ignore that potential for violence. So the pills that were up there, if you aren't familiar with them, they're an abortion medication and they're extremely harsh on the body. And so their potential for violence is both metaphorical, violence against women's bodies, both physical and political. So
Yeah,
say
I think that's important to me.
yeah, it's a spectrum of
Yes.
scale, violence,
Yeah.
etc.
Any other questions?
I actually have two.
Okay.
So as somebody who's not very familiar with ceramics, how do you see yourself in a lineage of like, let's say, traditional stoneware to people who try to be replicative? Where do you see yourself there? And then also, who are your art parents?
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Like my mentors or who I've got to just artist wise?
Yeah, to elaborate, I guess it could be a little bit of both. Sometimes we pull things from other artists without really thinking about it. And we have that inspiration. And there's people who are kind of like in the forefront of our mind who we're always thinking about. So I guess it's kind of like an open-ended question.
Art parents, that's neat.
My art parents. Yeah, I've never heard that. I like that. I'll answer that one first because that's fun and funny. My art parents, in specific pieces, I tend to think of specific people. So with my boot, there's an artist named Marilyn Levine who makes ceramic artwork that looks exactly like leather. It's insane work. So naturally, I look up to her during the creation of that. It's immaculate. But when it comes to things like the whimsy in my work, I look towards people like Dave Zakin, who is a very strange, whimsical, fun artist. I see some people nodding their heads, some ceramic people know of him. He makes the strangest little functional things that have really odd sayings on them that just come off of his head. And things like that just inspire me to do quite literally whatever I want because he does whatever he wants. So stuff like that, he's kind of in the back of my mind. So things like that. And then my other art parents are just the people I look up to, which most of them are in this room. So not to name any names, you know who you are, but, and then remind me your first question.
I would say like, I don't know anything about ceramics, but it seems like there's a long lineage from people who did like traditional stoneware to people like Bernard Palazzi, who did a lot of like replicated stuff. Where do you see yourself in that lineage? Are you trying to follow along the line, or are you trying to kind of rebel against people in history?
I don't know about following or rebelling, really. I mean, I feel like each person kind of does their own thing by default. But when it comes to traditional ceramics, I mean, I love a good mug, but that's not what I've been creating since I've been here, and it's not what I'll continue to create. I don't see myself in line with like the constant beautification of ceramics and this long line of the perfection of utilitarian work, functional porcelain and stoneware and such. As beautiful as it is, I love it, but it's not really what I create. I do create my own thing. I wouldn't say that I stick my foot down and I stick a finger up to the world and say I'm doing my own thing, but I am doing my own thing. Okay. But
Perfect. That's perfect. We'll end there. Well, I think we should end it there. Thank you, because we have 3 more other artists. I think that's a perfect, if you're okay with that.
yeah, that's fine.
No, Keleigh, you be proud of all of that. I would say, just from an outsider, I would place Keleigh in the category of contemporary ceramic sculpture, making hyper-realistic works, and trompe-l'oeil. Yeah, and talking about feminist issues. Actually, not just feminist, they're humanist issues, but from the female perspective, and talking about sexual violence. It's very powerful. Those works are really powerful and profound. So thank you. All right. Who do we have next? Okay. Where are we not in a order of things here?
I think you just exit out.
Oh, we're escaping. Oh, we're closing it. Go ahead, because I don't have my glasses on. Oh, here we go. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can
Oh,
close this out.
yeah,
I thought they were all lined up. Sorry.
yeah.
Okay, sort of. Okay. Pedro. Okay, next we have Pedro Aceves.
Hey, hi everybody. My name is Pedro. Can you stop saying I'm a third-year MFA? But technically, I'm still a third-year MFA. So I'm gonna try to just read a little bit and like ad-lib the rest.
Do presentation mode.
Yeah, where is it?
Should be down there somewhere. I like that I can teach you something too about technology.
Thank you. Wait, I'm sorry. Could you show me?
Yeah. Could be. Voila.
Voila. Okay, so in my work, I feature lens-based artwork centered around queer cruising and decolonial thought. Through my Latinx perspective, I do my best to weave visual dialogue about identity, intimacy, and reclamation of cultural knowledge, utilizing an array of mediums, including photography, glass, augmented reality, and more. Recently, I found out that's called being a lens-based artist. So, oh yeah, there we go. I want to talk about, my wheelhouse of inspiration and research, because a lot of my art is really reactionary to a lot of like research that I do when it comes to like philosophy of like Mesoamerican, pre-Hispanic like culture, and then queer history and iconography. And that kind of just like propels my ability to create. That's like my, sorry, there's like a pop-up thing. Sorry. So basically like my main wheelhouse, besides like my library, have you ever seen my studio? It's like half of a library. The wheelhouse that I get the most inspiration from right now is like Jose Munoz, sadly passed away recently. When it comes to his books on Cruising Utopia, Sense of Brown, Rob Hernandez, Archiving Epidemics, Miguel Leon Portillo is where I started my real foundational research in Mesoamerican like philosophy, ideology. Uh, Gloria with like the Borderlands books, Before the Roses by Yvette. It all really fed my wanting to create archival work that also served this space of contributing to these conversations of decolonial queer identity. So with my photography, it was very, archival based. I wanted to archive these like ephemeral spaces in this kind of artistic, towing the line of like art historian, but like also artist. I made sure that these locations were like void of people, hard to locate. So it's like you still have that sense of like what this place looked like, and also like the artifacts that were found there. And funny enough, well, not funny, but unfortunately enough, some of the photographs I now have in my archive are pretty much all that's left from some of the fires that have happened. So I kind of hold like, I actually now have my little archive of these like historical queer significant like locations. In the gallery space, I chose to highlight the spot, but also document diptychs of like the trash you would find there, differentiating it from like a homeless encampment and showing that this is a place where like queer, cruising happens. Um, in order to further activate like the space and play around with the installation, I also created like tufted rugs that mimicked the photographs of like some of the objects that you would find there. I titled the main photographs after things that you would hear, like in a kind of cruising environment of like, do you host? I can't host. Do you know a spot? This is a place. So I kind of played with those like phrases that are in that, what's the word? Sorry? Yes, exactly. In the like queer lexicon. Thank you. So that was like my photographic work. To supplement the photography, I wanted to also, well, not just supplement, but like, push the photography. I really wanted to play around with like novel technologies like 3D cameras. Most of these technologies are used for, like action sports and things like that. But I found a very, like the artist in me clicked and said, this is a really good way to document as well and create art at the same time, that both uses photography and pushes it as a medium as far as how you can present it in a gallery space. So even though they are not physically there, they still activate a space. They require like your phone as like a lens to view and interact with these photos. So you become a non-passive observer. I did do this as an empathy machine, whereas when you walk into these spaces and see everything around, you are experiencing this phenomenon called relative simultaneity, which is experiencing the same thing from two different perspectives. So as I am the one that came into this space, I am from this space, I am from this like conversation, presenting to you somebody who is not from this space, wanting to understand this. And that's also their titles. I named one relative, the other one simultaneity. There's actually a whole series of, but just for presentation purposes, I wanted to keep it like short and concise. Okay. To further supplement the Mesoamerican, Latina, Chicana part of my identity that goes into the whole decolonial part of my work is this kind of, como se dice? I wanted to create this work that was a metaphor of my journey of learning all of this like information. And I figured that a lot of what I'm trying to do is also in the vein of like being educational. So I chose like panes de muerto that are used primarily to honor the dead or honor like historic figures, or you only consume this in order to like remember. I core casted them with figures like Aztec sunstones, Xochipile, Coatlicue. I made these in particular because I figured out that through my reclamation of knowledge of like Mesoamerican attitudes towards queer culture, I found there was actually queer positive gods, and then like trauma healing gods, and that there was never actually this negative stereotype or this negative like how you say, sorry, I'm nervous. There was never this negative attitude towards being like queer in that as like that pre-Hispanic era. So the way that all of this tied in, as well, the holography. I also wanted to make these hologram fans because I wanted to also, emphasize that part of these figures, these gods, these positive attitudes never went away. They were only covered during the conquest and the mission system and the conversion of like Aztec to Cristiano, Católico, where from that point on, like gay was bad, gay had that negative attitude towards it. But then in reality, these figures always existed. They were always pushed to the background. And I used holography because it's a mode of communicating something that is, always been in the background, but I'm bringing it forth in a modern sense, almost like an advertisement. So it's like combining like new technology with like old thoughts and just showing it. And then I figured to tie everything together, I created this short film in Busca, and then it translates halfway through the film to Looking. The film is in basically 3 parts of written narrative. It starts in English, goes to Spanish, ends in Nahua. It goes through the whole, it kind of brings everything circle, showing the kind of ritual that happens with like Latinos in these cruising environments where they have to like remove these vestiges of like Christianity, like a scapular, a wedding ring, something that like made them not able to be queer. But in these spaces, removal of those objects allows them to be queer and activate that space. And it's like these ephemeral spaces that allows them to experience, this queer side of them that they weren't able to do normally. So it's kind of just like brings everything kind of together. Did I write? Oh yeah, that's pretty much. I thought I was gonna go last, so I kept it really like condensed for you guys. Yeah, that's pretty much it for that talk. Thank you.
Yes, and Pedro's been really experimental in this program, trying all kinds of new things. Who has a question for Pedro? Okay, Megan.
Hi, Pedro. First time, long time. So you work very heavily with technology, and I do sort of see this similarity between like early feminist art and really how during the rise of feminism they were really embracing new genres. And I see that because you're really steering the conversation around queer aesthetics and queer existence, do you see technology and your use of technology as essential, or is it more of just like a personal artistic choice of like this is just what you like?
Oh my God, no. First of all, wow, thank you. I feel seen. Yeah, my work is very, I didn't mention that. I was more nervous. I feel better now. My work is very experimental. I did want to kind of explain that. I learned a lot from new genres. I learned that you want to experiment with like, my main thing is photography, but I've always wanted to combine that photography in one way or another with another thing, like just combining genres for the same work, the same topics. I do feel it's important to, for me personally, so it's a 2-part yes and. I like using novel technologies, combining them with these old ideas and new narratives to bring them forth in a kind of palatable conversation that it's like me bringing it to like the level of current technology, something that's an old idea that you wouldn't have like thought of anyways. So it's speaking kind of the current language with the current technology, like the 3D spheres. Nobody really kind of uses them in that manner. Those are meant to be like for film or for action shots and stuff like that. I found like it clicked in my mind. This is a good documentary narrative. This is a good documentary device. This is a good way to like bring with this technology, bring that conversation into like the current, what is that gamer application people use to talk online? The discourse escaped me this whole time. So this is my way of adding to the discourse. I am not saying I'm into this. I'm not saying this is my novel idea. I am presenting to the discourse my want to see more of. I want to talk about this because I want to see more of this. I want this to be talked about. I want to see more art like this. I've had mentors telling me, make the art you want to make. Talk about the things you want to talk about when it comes to like art. Like, be the change you want to see. I see we're in a great time when it comes to art about like queer issues and queer politics, but I do see a lack when it comes to like queer masculine, trans masculine, decolonial views on like art. And I guess I found like, hey, this is true to me. This is something I want to talk about. This is something I can talk about. And combining technologies with like old practices, I am trying to present it in a interesting way that will be more, palatable, interesting for other people to learn. So it becomes like a learning device. It becomes a active way to experience art. It becomes my way to add to the discourse. So yeah, thank you for that question.
Hello. You were speaking about the like the decolonial aspect of your work and how a lot of these indigenous cultures had like, oh, this is a feminine spirit, this is a masculine spirit, and then here's some spirits that are like in between or they're not masculine or feminine. And so how does that like learning about that aspect of maybe not religious but spirituality, how has that helped you as like an artist or even in your personal life?
Yes. Let me talk about this again, specifically each one. So the purpose of the bread was also to talk about this concept called anthroposia. It's a Brazilian kind of term of like consuming to become, consuming to create. So I felt that Pan de Muerto became the perfect like vehicle for the allegory of consuming. The Aztec, the Mesoamerican iconography for me was, I made the sunstone after reading Jose Portillo's Aztec philosophy. That fed me this concept of like, oh wait, things were very, very, very different ideology, different philosophies, different ways of thinking. When I found Xochipilli from Jose Portillo, I did more research in Mexico City, found books on this queer god that is apparently not really known as a queer god. The scholars in Mexico City have found it's contentious, but during colonization, a lot of the texts were altered by friars, and this negative queer aspect to being like gay in Aztec times was actually edited in. It was like retconned. And hashtags like about Xochipilli being god of medicine, god of dance, god of art, god of all these things, presenting as masculine, feminine, intersex. A lot of the things get kind of like lost in the minutia, and people kind of pick the things they want and then kind of stick with that. I was lucky enough to find texts that actually had unedited, unaltered, like kind of references to all this. So then I used him as another one of my forecasted pieces that I then now consumed this. It's okay to be queer. It was always okay to be queer. Colonial, like being colonized, made it bad for me to be queer. So that's where Xochipilli comes in. He was like, oh, like that's my patron saint now, if you want to call it that. We're talking about decolonizing. With Guatlique, please tell me if I pronounce it wrong. They also have this, I mean, a lot of us know the canon pretty much by now, but on top of that canon, they were also prayed to for like queer healing, queer trauma, the whole part of being broken up. Well, they also bring themselves back together. So the other reason I chose her as part of like, my core casted pantheon is this gave me the assurance that like, it was always okay to be queer. Coatlicue gives me that ability, like, you know what, I can just bring myself back together and heal from all those years of like trauma. So that's where the whole looking at cruising through like the decolonial aspect comes in full force, where it's like this information, this consumption, this like transformation, like I now consumed it, I now became, sorry, I now became it. So like I decolonized myself, like in a sense. And I felt it was important to make art that kind of archived my journey, since I like, creating archival works. So I make these archives as like both fictional archive as an artist and like archive as something educational. Did that answer? Okay.
More questions for Pedro? Okay. Okay, we'll do two.
As you have all of these different experimental practices that you're kind of including in you have all these different access of inspiration and experiences that you're kind of pulling from. Do you ever think it's possible that you would alienate viewers? If so, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? And then moving forward, as you're kind of closing this chapter of your artistic career, do you see your efforts getting funneled, or do you see them expanding?
You don't need a microphone, so I'm gonna have to reiterate. As far as alienation, I don't feel it's necessarily alienation. I am talking through my perspective. I'm talking about these big ideas. Public sex happens everywhere by every sexuality, any kind of person, combination, place, thing. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants when it comes to these topics, but I am very specifically talking about, my experience of being in the borderland, being Latina, growing up half Latina, half Chicanx. So you know what that means? Like, I'm from Guadalajara, but I spent half my life here. So it's like, am I Latino? Am I Chicano? Do I use Latinx? I use Latine because in Mexico, we use the EN. We don't use the X. The X was American. So that's why Chicanos use Chicanx. So it's like, I'm operating from my viewpoint, my vantage point, from my observations, from my time, in the field, observing, being inspired by these like moments and these wantings to create art about this, because it's like something that I wanted to add to not just like queer art, but art history and queer history in general. I feel it'd be something to like even do a dissertation about at some point, adding this to like the canon of queer history. So at no point do I intend to alienate anybody. If anything, it's a learning opportunity for anybody. What was the second part?
Now that you're sort of moving to a different point of your artistic career, do you see yourself kind of focusing on certain mediums, or do you kind of want to expand it more?
So no shameless plug, but I'm currently on view at the Versa Art Museum. I've been lucky enough to get attention for my AR work. So I think that's something I'm gonna, explore more. I am mainly a photographer, so this AR is photography. So I'm being true to myself, working with like a novel technology. I will probably concentrate a lot more on AR since I'm going to be losing these sweet facilities. If any of you are in a program right now, these facilities are amazing. Take advantage of them. Use every freaking resource you have. Luckily for me, I have my own professional equipment because I am like a personal photographer, and augmented reality. I am my own studio for that. I don't need the school's resources for that. For everything else, I'm gonna miss it. It's gonna hurt. But when it comes to like building my body of work, yeah, it's gonna be a lot more photos of archives. It's gonna be a lot more 360 like photography for archives. If I get the chance, I am gonna try to work with more glass and like more metal. I recently got into bronze. So yeah, I continue to want to do what I'm doing. For the most part, it's going to be probably more AR things and things of that vein.
Thank you for those questions. Thank you, Pedro. Congratulations to Pedro. Yes. All right. So moving right along, we have Katherine Posada. You're up next. All right. Okay, I'll put you to face. You can start.
Hello, everyone. Woo! Thank you, thank you. So I was not gonna come today. I was trying any excuse to not come, yet here I am. So please be nice to me, okay? All right, let's get started. So before I came here, I was receiving my MA at CSUN, Cal State Northridge, and I was basically just exploring everything of familial ties, and my family is really important to me, so I wanted to talk about where I was born and raised. So I was born in Sun Valley, California, and this is my family over here. I was the youngest of 4 sisters, so clearly you can tell that's me crying right there. Obviously I didn't like it. Um, but yes, and being the youngest of 4, obviously I grew up a lot with my sisters and my family. So my family has always meant a lot to me. And I feel because my parents were Salvadorian, I was American, I always saw the duality of both cultures. And I wanted to start to venture out that experience with my work. So let's start with my first year. So it was exploration and play. So for my first year, I was very experimental. So I was learning new materials and new tools. So let's see this place. So when I found out that the program had a 3D printer, I was impressed. Northridge did not have this, okay? So when I saw this 3D printer, that was the first thing I came to do. So again, growing up, I would go to my grandma's house a lot of the times in Salvador, and she had this record player, and it was so vintage, it was so old. I've never seen nothing like that. So I wanted to recreate that, right? But I still wanted to have my own twisted things. So let's see. This was the first iteration of that, exploring it, trying to create that. That was from the 3D printer, and just trying to incorporate other things, other elements as well. And again, still working with porcelain and trying to see like what Clariflex porcelain sheets do. So again, just I was delving into like learning new things, and like also exploring how to do MP4s and like audio, because I remember I was working a lot with Timmy of like trying to do audio and things like that. So again, just exploring, seeing what I could do. And then again, a lot of iterations came up about this. So unfortunately, the 3D printer one just wasn't working out. So this was like my 3rd iteration that I had done, and it was a slab technique. And again, also for installation stuff, I would say for installation, it was something I was exploring because I know that I always wanted to do it. However, I just didn't know how. So just doing iterations of how it would actually look. And then these were different iterations that I did. So like, again, it was just trying to see in like different spaces of like how it would look and like how it would actually be presented. So again, just really exploring. And then boom, comes 2nd year, you blink and it's over. So 2nd year happens, right? So let's just jump right into my 2nd year. This is a trip that changed everything for me. So I had gone to Salvador for my 2nd year, and it was something like completely different. It just did like a 360 on my work. I was still trying to figure out my voice, trying to see what I wanted to talk about. And this trip was very like detrimental to my work and like what I was then going to talk about in the future. So I just wanted to give you guys just like an insight of that trip that I had taken. Oops. So in California, right, we're talking about like I then started realizing when I came back from my trip the differences of water scarcity. So obviously in Salvador, my parents did not have it how we have it here. So seeing that for the first time, I think it was such a different perspective for me. And then that's why like it then started reflecting in my work so often. So I think it was such a humbling experience to see my mom actually like go get water from a mountain, come back, and like I then just started reflecting like the differences like here, like I get to turn on the faucet and like it's completely different for like what my mom experienced growing up. So I think that really hit home for me. And I think it then made me start start realizing what I wanted to talk about more in my work. So then I started more exploration and I started working fairly big. So this was the first iteration of the Cántaro that I wanted to create. I wanted to keep working with video, but still work with ceramics, and I wanted to incorporate both. And this giant Cántaro was the first iteration. No, you're okay. And then this is my work that then started talking about familial ties and how it has shaped me. So experimenting with projection and video, and as well as just working larger. And then that's when the iterations of the Cántaros started to happen. So these were all paper plaster molds that then I started to create so I could create multiples of them. And this was the I guess the projection of then my future work of all the Cántaros. So I was just making and like making and making and making. That's all that just happens, right? Like I was just popping these out every day. I would probably try to do 2 to 3 a day. And I just then after started continuing working with video and started editing more and doing installation as well. So with the installation, I wanted to incorporate a place where people can just walk through and also experience what I experienced when my mom had also been doing the same thing in Salvador. And then you blink again, third year happens. I promise you, everyone's gonna feel the same way. And next year, everyone's gonna be like, how is it third year? So here I am, third year, doing my thesis exhibition. And I then just continued to blend everything, video, storytelling. And I would say my thesis would reflect my shared beliefs, like with my family and both my American and Salvadorian sides, and just trying to merge them both together. So then we get this big boy from here and from there. And I would say I would definitely agree with Pedro. The resources here are incredible. I think if I were to do this, like now that like I'm not gonna have a studio, they would not look like this at all. I think especially because shout out to Christopher Guzman, because he really was helpful. And all the faculty here, I would just say it's incredible to truly be able to like accomplish what I did here. And I was just exploring how culture is then passed down, and through tradition and objects of everyday action, I would create work that invites viewers to reflect on their own identities. And that's exactly what I was doing with mine, and connecting with mine. So I would say that my work is a visual narrative of time, place, and people that have shaped my life. And I would best say I was trying to do all of this with video, projection, ceramics, all of the above. And then I would also just like to shout out women in my life that are very important to me, which is my mom and my grandmother. Yes. And I would say they are very important to me. Again, they've just been powerful influences in my life. So in other ways, they're the people that I would say have photographic like record of these stories and like have this strength for me to be able to do this as well. And then again, just using vibrant colors to like talk about my experiences and my culture. And again, the dualities of both being American Salvadorian and being able to merge that and connect to my past, present, and future selves. Yeah, so I would say my ceramic pieces are not just objects. I think they are storytellers. So they speak about the resilience, identity, and cultural pride. So after all of this, thank you so much. I now have no excuse to public speak again. So I told you guys all my stories. So I thank you so much. And again, it was just amazing getting to experience like experimenting and like where I am today. So yeah, if you guys want to check out my website, you're more than welcome to. My Instagram. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So questions for Katherine? Okay, Megan.
Don't worry, you can do this. Because you're merging so many different mediums, you're working with video, you're working with projection, you're working with a more traditional medium of ceramics. Do you see that as an extension of like this coming together of culture?
I would definitely say that. I would say because again, experiencing, I guess my own experiences and then seeing my parents' experience, it's still regardless being merged. So me just talking about it in a different way, I think that's a perfect example of both being, I guess, united, you would say.
Any other questions? Okay.
Can you speak to the importance of interaction in some of your pieces?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, for the interaction pieces like this one, um, I would say like for the interaction pieces, I think like a lot of the times I want people to experience like I guess what I was going through and like what I felt, having that switch of coming home and then having one scenario and then having another. So I think having the audience experience that in their own way, because again, everybody comes from different cultures, different identities. I think it was just very important to me to see that when somebody would move it, I would want them to feel some type of way and not necessarily like how I experienced it, just again, how they were thinking or how they felt about the whole experience. Yeah.
One more question, Santos.
You're very particular in talking about having a lot of iterations of your work, so you're very careful to explore and build in stages. I'm curious if the access to technology that you had here, which you're very grateful for, is that something that just kind of enabled you and allowed you to experiment that much further and that much more precise? Or did it also just kind of open up more avenues for you and like doing that kind of method?
I would definitely say it opened a lot of avenues for me. Um, I do wonder that honestly, now that like I won't have the facility, I wonder like how my work is gonna look and whether or not I'm gonna continue like to just keep trying to venture out. Cause again, knowing that I had those resources here, I was able to just experiment and just I kept wanting to do whatever basically like came to mind compared to like now I need to know like, oh, I don't have wood shop and a tech that's gonna help me build a whole frame. So again, it's different, but I don't think it would affect how I make.
And it's a resourcefulness that you gained being here, right? So if you can't, you'll find the access to those things out there in the world, no problem. And it's kind of a mindset of openness to all the possibilities that you have. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you, Katherine. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you decided to show up. We would have been deprived of that great presentation. And it's such a relief, right? Okay, Tony, come on up, my friend. Last but not least. Okay, what's going on? Why can't I just close it down? Oh. Okay, next, we're gonna have okay, there we go. There you go. And let's get you.
Well, there is a lot more of you than when I sat down. Oh, yeah. So happy you guys came. All right. So if you don't already know me, my name's Antonia, but you can call me Tony. First off, I just want to thank my classmates. Honestly, you guys have been my biggest inspiration, literally. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you guys and all the laughs and all the critiques. Thanks so much for the critiques. I've gotten my best ideas from you guys. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And it's been a pleasure. And I literally cannot wait to see what you guys do in the future. I'm honestly so excited about it. Oh, I guess I need that. All right. One second. Oh, my notes are right here. I didn't even need this. I'm just gonna slide that back there. All right. All right. So for most of my life, I was force-fed this narrative of what ideal beauty looked like. And at the time, it was made clear that I wasn't a part of that. So I pretty much changed forehead down to fit this ideal box. But there was something I was never going to be able to change, this curly, kinky hair coming out of my head. When I grew up, I wanted straight hair so bad. I grew up in the high desert, Hesperia area, you know, desert rat, if you know, you know. And I could count on my hands how many people that went to my school that had hair like mine, especially in those like really formative years, like elementary and middle school. So I didn't have too many influences. So when I came to grad school, I wanted to create a series that represented that feeling of kind of being force-fed this narrative of the ideal standards of beauty. So I took some straight hair and I set it up with some commonly used kitchen supplies and created the scene of serving up the ideal standards of beauty. And this is another image from that series. Then kind of going into my second year, I started thinking about when I asked my mom for my first relaxer. I think I was about 7 years old. And well, I didn't ask her exactly for a relaxer. I asked her for straight hair. And my mom, she only knew one way of doing that. The exact same way her mom did to her was a relaxer. So I got my first relaxer when I was maybe in second grade. So I felt like I finally achieved that ideal look, but I realized it was never going to look like everyone else's. You know, it was kind of my own, you know, straight hair version. So I probably relaxed my hair for about 10 years. And then eventually I wanted to start my healthy hair journey in high school and I stopped relaxing my hair. So in the second semester of my first year, I did a deep dive in ingredients in the hair relaxer, and I was pretty shocked with what I found. If you've ever seen Chris Rock's the documentary that Chris Rock hosts, it's called Good Hair. If you haven't, it's excellent. It really dives deep in the ingredients of what's in chemical relaxer. So yeah, I was shocked about the ingredients that were inside. And I realized that this product was being sold to people of color for years to destroy our roots and to conform to ideal America. So in this series, I photographed the exact relaxer kit that I used when I was a little kid. This is it right here. Looks fun and nice and really playful, huh? Little did I know. So that was my first semester. Now, this next semester might look a little bit different. I was going through some things in my personal life, and this series was born. This was really me stepping away from digital photography and focusing on film. These were shot on. These are Polaroids that I later drew on. I started to play with word and how impactful I realized it was not only to me, but to my artwork. This series is about regret, forgiveness, and overall acceptance. That's kind of all I'm going to say about it right now. It is a longer series. It's called When Life Gives You Lemons, You Make Limeade. So kind of getting back into the swing of things, around second semester, I was getting my hair taken down by my husband. He was helping me take out my weave or something. And we were sitting there talking like I've done for a majority of my life with my mom, my sister, my aunts, uncles, cousins, whatever. And I was realizing how much time, energy, and effort he was putting into helping me take out my hair. And I started thinking about all the hands that had passed through my hair throughout my entire life. And I realized all the love and commitment and time that people have spent on me. So I decided to photograph this process of people putting time, energy, and effort into their hair. And for me, for my community, it wasn't always the easiest process, as you can see here. Sometimes it was painful. Sometimes it was complicated. Sometimes you just didn't want to do it. I realized throughout this series that I only focused on the finished product. You know, that was the only thing people saw. And I never sat and appreciated those like small little moments that I now have a great appreciation for. So within that, I started conducting these takedowns with people in my family. So I would ask them like, hey, can I come over and, you know, help you unbraid your hair, you know, help you detangle it, whatever you need. And we started having this conversation that I never thought we would have about, you know, what their hair meant to them, how it was growing up, these really open conversations, which when I was younger, we did not talk about. And so it really, you know, kind of helped me connect with my family in a totally different way that I never realized, but crazy enough, that's this thing we all share, but we just never thought about talking about it. It was like that kind of hidden little secret. I also received my own takedown with my husband, and we kind of sat and had this conversation, and I got to hear about his hair story from a male's perspective, because I assumed it was kind of similar, but it's totally different. So I really appreciated the time and energy, you know, that he spent with me doing that. And then, funny enough, I have haha written in my notes here because that's literally what this was, a haha. Because in this same year, I was going through my own personal hair crisis because I thought it would be a good idea to chemically texturize my curls because, you know, I wanted loose curls. Why not? And as you can tell, I do not have loose curls at all. You know, so this past 2 years, I had been preaching like, you know, accept your natural hair and, you know, like screw, like screw the people that sell us this stuff. And then here I am, you know, going back to conform to that box. Ultimately, I severely fucked up my hair. It was bad. It was bad, guys. So in this work, I didn't really recognize myself, and I was trying to understand why I felt like it was necessary to texturize my hair after all this time of not putting any chemicals in my hair. For the last year, oh wait, already said that. Um, I kind of felt like I was taming myself because I was taming my hair. And I hope this work is a direct reflection to that. And I was just going through major hair depression. So I did what anyone would do. I chopped off all my hair. I didn't realize this was going to be a 360 moment. Now when I think about it, I'm like, oh, wow, you know? But yeah, it did. So I chopped off all my hair. That's me the day of chopping my hair. I took a still from a video I did because I recorded the entire experience. So this is a still from the video. Now I was out in the open. I had to wear my hair naturally and embrace it at all of its stages. So from when it was itty bitty to how it is now, it was the most liberating and scary experience, you know, I had kind of gone through. After I watched the recording of myself, I finally realized kind of how much my hair meant to me. Because if you have seen the video and if you haven't, I basically broke down for the first like 5 minutes and then was like liberated in the last like 3 or so minutes of it. So I started to think like, I wonder if other people feel the way I feel. So I started asking the question, you know, what does your hair mean to you? I had the opportunity to work with my hairstylist on her salon opening, and I kind of talked to her and I was like, hey, can I come in and, you know, ask your patrons like, hey, what does your hair mean to you? And she was totally on board with it. So I was able to interview a whole bunch of people and ask them that question. And I got so many great and insightful answers. Some people were just like, my hair, what do you mean? You know, some people didn't know what to ask, and some people really took the time to like think about it and come back and answer the question. I was also able to interview some other people as well and get their experiences. Because I realized not everyone's experience is like mine. Everyone has totally different ones. And so it's been great to kind of hear them out and, you know, kind of build this form of community. Here's some people that I was able to interview at that event. I didn't realize that I was looking for a community of people until I found one. And I realized hair was kind of this like cultural, communal like exchange where, you know, we can all sit around and talk about, you know, these things that I didn't realize other people had that I had in common with other people as well. So that was truly amazing. This is the salon owner and her partner. And I was able to photograph them separately. And it was such a bonding experience. And I really appreciated them taking the time and allowing me to photograph them in this way. And it was just an experience about hair and talking. And I really appreciate these moments. We're finally here, the thesis show. My thesis show was called Does It Burn Yet? A brief little history about that title. If you've ever gotten a relaxer, the best time to take off the relaxer is when it starts to burn, because you get the straightest outcome. And so a phrase that was thrown around when I was younger from my mom and my aunt was they would ask me like, hey, does it burn yet? Like, does your hair burn yet? And those are kind of the things that I remember the most was that phrase, because I wanted it to stay on just long enough where, you know, it would look as straight as possible. So that's where the title comes from. Does it burn yet? Oh, notes, where are you? Okay. Well, my notes are not here, so it's all right. We're just gonna wing it. We're just gonna wing it. So this is my thesis show. I wanted this to be a communal and safe space for people who had ever dealt with chemical relaxer or texturizer. I wanted them to feel seen, and not just people that had used chemicals in their hair, but any type of, not just those chemicals, but any type of chemical. We all have a hair story, and I wanted people to be able to connect with that in any way. So we've all had a bad haircut, we've all dyed our hair, we've all, you know, put bad bleach, whatever, you know, we all have an experience. So I wanted, you know, that to be seen here. And to the right is a list of that same relaxer that I used to use when I was a kid. And I realized that this relaxer is marketed towards people, you know, with the slogan, the relaxer you know and the ingredients you trust. And I realized I don't know any one of those ingredients. And I didn't realize the potential health effects, like different kind of cancers, burns, irritations. After the community project with the salon, I really wanted to have this interactive work where I asked people this question: how do you interact with societal beauty standards? And I got a lot of answers, and I really appreciated everyone's answers. I was a little nervous about this. I was hoping people, you know, would answer the question, and I got so many great answers, so I really appreciate that. And it was awesome to hear different people's perspectives. This work was kind of personal. My mom and I had a conversation about what she was going to see at the thesis show. And my mom takes her hair very seriously to this day. It is a representation of her and her as a mother. So we had this conversation, and she apologized, which she didn't need to not only me, but my younger self. And and I thought I'd, take pictures, some of her favorite pictures of me when I was younger, and, put those words over them that, we spoke about. On the right is the video that I told you guys about. As you can see, I am smiling, and that's for a majority of the video because it was such a liberating experience. And lastly, I did another, dang, why do I keep forgetting that word? Interactive, thank you. Work, as you can see, it doesn't look like it, but there was actually a whole bunch of postcards on this. And I don't know why I didn't get a picture of it before they were all gone, but it said the postcards were burnt mannequin heads, and it said beauty doesn't have to equal pain, and which it really doesn't. We shouldn't have to hurt ourselves to feel a certain way. And that's something I'm still, trying to work through. And this is just the process of 3 months of what chemical relaxers do to mannequin heads. I realized after doing this, they were kind of collapsing in on themselves. And it made me realize, like, wow, I can't believe I used to put that on my head. And I still did. Now, towards the end of this, you guys might be wondering, like, dang, like, girl, it's just hair. Like, and it may seem like just hair, but to me, it definitely isn't. It's something that I have to think about in my everyday life. I literally think when I'm applying to a job and I go to a job interview, is this hair going to be professional? Is this style going to be professional enough for this job? Is this appropriate? Is this, neat enough? And unfortunately, I do have to think like that. I'm trying to, you would think as an artist, I'd be like, whatever, free. Um, but I still do kind of think like that. And I'm trying to grow out of that, mindset. But I'm so happy that I'm wearing my hair natural now. I'm very proud of it. And that is the end of my talk. The end.
Congratulations, Tony. And yeah, I don't know that you'll ever stop worrying about those things, but I'm glad you shone a light on this issue, and I learned a great deal as well. Any questions for Tony quickly? Yeah.
Hi, Tony. The interactive piece that you had with the Post-it notes, do you have plans to do anything further with that or get those messages out to, like, I'm thinking maybe like a book or a zine or something like that with those answers so that you can share those experiences with a broader audience and then, I don't know, maybe even further develop it as time goes by.
Next project.
Yeah, most definitely. That's a really good question. I would love to do that, honestly. I haven't really thought about what's next yet. But I would love to do more interactive stuff, and I would love to get things, the word out there. So yeah, that's definitely something I would totally consider probably gonna do.
Hi, Tony. So I felt like there was so much work that you showed in the slideshow that I have not seen yet. I would love to see you sharing more of this work. What are your plans for kind of expanding some of the photography out? Like, do you kind of have an idea of how to get some of that out there? What are you kind of thinking about?
Hey, honestly, leaning on my community, I didn't realize like how many people were interested in these things. The woman that helped me, that allowed me to do the interviews at her salon, she actually bought some of my pieces. So, now my stuff lives in her salon. So I thought that was amazing. So I was like, oh, like maybe I should do more events like this. Like, why not? And it was literally just asking kind of like a simple question, and people got really into it and started becoming really interactive. So just putting myself out there more, and like, sorry, I didn't realize that was, clearly that's on me. I need to show my stuff. I need to be more open about sharing my stuff more. So that's the main goal, honestly, is to put myself more out there. Oh, yes. Also social media. I am now a TikTok star. So yeah, gonna have a TikTok drop on Saturday, just to let you know. Follow me.
Any final comments? Okay, we should probably wrap up. So anyways, thank you. Thanks to everybody. Congratulations, MFA students, class of 2025. This is just another beginning, right? Like where you're going to take this slide presentation that you put together, you're going to rework it and use it many, many times in your future. So we wish you all the very best and keep us posted on all your successes and all your TikToks and all your awards and exhibitions and everything else. So thanks to everybody else who came out to support your colleagues and students, professors. Thank you for being here. And we look forward to seeing our next event is the viewing at 3 o'clock at 3 p.m. in 101. So the Arts and Media Media Arts Festival, excuse me, and then 6 p.m. award ceremony. I want to see you all there. And then 7 p.m. is our opening for the year-end show. Pizza and beer will be supplied. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.